There are matches where Erling Haaland finishes with fewer than 20 touches, no dribbles, no long passing sequences, sometimes not even an assist. On paper it looks like absence, but on the pitch, entire teams behave differently because of him. Defensive lines retreat before danger appears. Midfields lose their compact shape without being pulled apart. Pressing triggers hesitate for half a second, and that's enough to change everything. Nothing about the game feels normal. This isn't a story about goals, records, or how defenders adapted to him. That part has already been told. This is about something deeper, about how control quietly moved away from the ball itself. Because Erling Haaland doesn't dominate matches by involvement. He dominates them by changing what defenders believe they can afford to do. The answer isn't found in touch maps, link-up play, or passing networks. It's found in anticipation, in the cost of one wrong step, in what defenders think might happen if they act on instinct. Once fear enters decision-making, control changes hands, and the numbers reveal this influence far better than highlights ever could.
During Manchester City's treble-winning season, Erling Haaland averaged under 30 touches per 90 minutes in the Premier League. In multiple matches, that number dropped into the low 20s. For a team built on control, circulation, and positional dominance, that statistic looks like a flaw. It places Haaland well below players like Harry Kane or Karim Benzema, and even below traditional penalty box strikers from previous eras who were expected to link play, recycle possession, and stay involved between the lines. By conventional logic, this should damage the attack. A disconnected striker usually slows circulation. He interrupts rhythm. He turns build-up into a dead end. Possession loses direction because the final reference point disappears. That's how the model has always worked. But with Haaland, the pattern reversed. That same season, Manchester City averaged over 2.5 goals per game across all competitions. Their XG per shot increased compared to the year before his arrival, and their highest quality chances consistently came from central zones, despite fewer passes being played directly into the striker's feet. This is where the logic breaks. Low involvement didn't reduce efficiency, it removed resistance. City didn't lose control when Haaland stayed quiet, they lost friction. Defensive lines dropped earlier to protect depth. Midfield pressure arrived later to avoid being bypassed. Passing lanes appeared sooner, before rotations or overloads were even required. The attack didn't become more elaborate or complex, it became cleaner. Fewer passes were needed to reach dangerous zones. Decisions became faster because space already existed. All of it happened before the final pass was even considered. Because once a striker influences positioning without demanding the ball, involvement stops being the relevant metric. Touches no longer explain control. Link-up play no longer defines dominance. Control shifts away from possession itself and into something far more dangerous, the ability to dictate where defenders are allowed to stand. Watch how center-backs behave the moment Erling Haaland positions himself between them. They don't step forward to compress space. They don't squeeze the line to support pressure. They don't gamble on anticipation. They drop, not because they're instructed to, but because the cost of being wrong is absolute. One aggressive step forward creates a foot race that cannot be recovered. One press triggered half a second late turns into a direct ball that ends the sequence instantly. Against Manchester City, defensive lines routinely sit 5 to 8 meters deeper than their usual block, even during phases where Haaland remains static. That depth feels controlled, it buys time, it reduces immediate danger, but it quietly dismantles structure. The distance between midfield and defense stretches beyond recovery range. Midfielders hesitate to step out because support is too far behind them. Passing lanes appear between the lines before pressure can arrive. Defending stops being proactive. It becomes conditional. Center-backs stop thinking about winning the first duel. They think about turning, about angles, about recovery speed, and that mindset spreads. Fullbacks narrow earlier than planned. Midfield screens drop deeper to protect space instead of contesting it. Pressing triggers lose synchronization. Nothing collapses all at once. It erodes, because once compactness disappears, control disappears with it. Even if the backline feels safer in the moment, when defensive lines retreat to protect space in behind, midfield pressure becomes hesitant by default. Stepping out feels risky. Holding position feels safer. That hesitation changes everything. Kevin De Bruyne stops receiving with his back to goal under contact. He receives facing forward, already scanning the box. Ilkay Gundogan's late runs become harder to track. Center-backs are pinned deeper than they want to be. Stepping out to follow him leaves Haaland unattended. Staying back concedes space at the edge of the area. Jack Grealish benefits differently. With the backline dropping early, fullbacks hesitate to jump wide. Double teams arrive later. Isolation becomes optional instead of forced. None of this requires Haaland to touch the ball. His presence stretches the pitch vertically, forcing defenders to prioritize depth. That vertical concern widens midfield space horizontally. City's possession doesn't accelerate, it clarifies. Instead of circulating endlessly to move a block, they attack space that already exists. Vertical passes replace overloads. Early decisions replace prolonged buildup. Pep Guardiola didn't redesign Manchester City around Haaland. He allowed the system to absorb fear naturally, but there's another layer to this influence, one that doesn't appear in passing networks or positional charts. Haaland's most damaging actions don't end with shots or assists. They end with decisions made under uncertainty. A brief acceleration that forces a center back to open his body before the ball moves. A curved run across the shoulder that threatens depth without demanding service. A movement that pins two defenders to the same channel, freezing both. None of this appears in touch maps. None of it shows up in expected assists. But defenders feel it immediately. They aren't reacting to movement. They're reacting to the consequence of being wrong. They don't know if the sprint will continue or stop. They don't know if the pass will arrive early or half a second late. They don't know if stepping out creates control or collapses everything. That uncertainty destroys timing. Center backs turn earlier than they want to. Fullbacks abandon their lines sooner than planned. Midfielders hesitate to close down because the defense behind them is already retreating. No one wants to be the first to step forward. Defending shifts from coordination to caution. Each decision feels small. Together, they reshape the entire block. The run doesn't need to finish. The pass doesn't need to be played. The outcome is already decided. Pressing is built on trust. Trust that space behind you is survivable. Trust that recovery will arrive. Trust that one mistake won't end the game. Against Haaland, that trust evaporates. Teams don't abandon pressing because it stops working. They abandon it because the punishment becomes irreversible. One broken press no longer costs territory. It ends the phase. Midfielders delay counter-pressing. Wingers hesitate before jumping wide. Center-backs refuse to step into midfield even when the cue is obvious. Aggression gives way to caution. Possession slows to preserve structure. Runs are staggered instead of synchronized. Players take extra touches to ensure cover exists. This isn't coaching instruction. It's self-regulation. Players understand that losing the ball in the wrong zone carries disproportionate cost. So rhythm changes, tempo drops, urgency fades, fear begins controlling pace, and once fear dictates rhythm, control has already shifted.
There came a point when teams stopped believing Erling Haaland could be neutralized. The objective quietly changed. It was no longer about stopping him. It was about containing the damage. This shift never appeared in press conferences or tactical diagrams. It appeared in decisions made on the pitch. Fullbacks stopped overlapping in the same phase, choosing balance over threat. Midfielders delayed forward runs they had spent entire careers making on instinct. Center-backs accepted territory they would normally contest, prioritizing distance over dominance. Against Manchester City, opponents reached an unspoken conclusion. Losing control of possession was manageable. Losing control of space was not. Risk assessment changed. Expected goals against were no longer tied only to shots. They were tied to moments. A loose touch in midfield, a line stepped up half a second too early, a press triggered without perfect support. Each carried disproportionate punishment. As a result, defending became phased rather than compact. Teams allowed City to circulate the ball in harmless zones. They crowded central corridors. They waited for mistakes rather than forcing them. Not because it solved the problem, but because every alternative felt more dangerous. This was no longer about tracking Haaland's movement. It was about surviving his presence. And when football reaches the point where prevention turns into damage control, the balance of power has already shifted beyond repair. You can double team the ball. You can surround a playmaker between the lines. You can collapse passing lanes and force possession into safer zones. Space offers no such certainty. It can't be marked by numbers. It can't be pressed on command. It only exists and demands respect. Haaland doesn't depend on rhythm to stay dangerous. He doesn't require volume touches to influence the match. He doesn't need repeated actions to impose himself. Even during stretches where he appears disconnected, defensive behavior intensifies. Backlines retreat earlier than planned. Midfielders hesitate before stepping out. Recovery runs begin before the threat is visible. These adjustments don't respond to what is happening. They respond to what could happen. That's why his influence survives missed chances. It survives imperfect service. It survives entire halves where he barely touches the ball. The danger is already priced into every decision. Defenders don't react to outcomes. They react to potential. One sprint in behind carries enough weight to reshape an entire block. One possible run forces spacing adjustments across the pitch. And once defending becomes preemptive rather than reactive, the match is no longer balanced. The ball may move freely. Possession may look even. But control has already shifted because fear is now dictating how space is protected. And when space is defended before it's even used, dribbling, passing, and creativity stop being the primary weapons. The game has already been tilted. For decades, football measured dominance through possession and involvement. Erling Haaland breaks that logic. He doesn't control matches by demanding the ball. He controls them by reshaping space, through gravity, through fear, through the cost attached to a single mistake. Defenders position themselves around what might happen. Midfielders choose safety over ambition. Entire systems adjust to prevent moments that may never come. This is control without contact,
And until football learns how to defend against possibility itself, the most dangerous player on the pitch may remain the one you barely notice, because sometimes the player who touches the ball the least is the one controlling everything. If this changed how you see Erling Haaland, make sure you like the video, subscribe if you want football explained beyond highlights and headlines. We break down the things you don't notice until they change everything. Thank you for watching the video.